Yo, what is up guys? Anthony here, back with another Destiny Child video here on the channel. And in today's video everyone, we are going to be overviewing some of the units you should be tossing onto your World Boss roster for, of course, the current event in the World Boss Trials Season 24 Nephthys event. So without any further ado, let's get started and overview some of the units I am actually using so far in the event. Of course, the event just started at the time of recording. It's actually very late, but I decided to start the event early, and we do have the boss here, of course, first boss here as the event just started. I did just mention, but we do have my team here. Now, of course, this is all subject to change. We don't have a normal guide, as I do normally overview the graphics that the others do create on the Discord servers, but we don't have one for this event just yet. So I thought I would just overview some of the units that are suggested to run typically against the World Boss Trials against the wood type. So of course, Nephthys is a wood type World Boss unit, and of course we can overview her boss information here before we do dive into the event. Of course, we do have the tap skill here: deal damage to 4 enemies, priority debuffed, a 100% chance to inflict time alteration, remove all time based buffs from the target, and reduce skill gauge charge speed by 40%, which is pretty big here on the tap skill. And we do also have corrosion, 100 damage over time every 2 seconds based on the number of targets debuffs, +1 max 4, and grant debuff stacking to self for 14 seconds long. As for the slide skill here, we do have deal damage 2 times to 5 enemies, priority highest attack, 100% chance to inflict attack defense switch, swaps attack and defense stats for 20 seconds, and increase debuff duration by 50% based on current remaining duration for 20 seconds long. And for the drive skill here, we do have deal damage to all enemies in the front row, 100% chance to remove all buffs, which is huge. Of course, she does remove all buffs here on the drive skill. And for the leader buff here, debuff evasion plus 30%, all skill defense plus 80%, except for weak point attributes, and allure immunity for all allies. So of course, allure units don't work on her, and we do have here overall a very strong World Boss unit, I would say. And this one is in particular more different than the previous few World Boss Trials, as of course Juno does not work on this boss event, as we do have here the buff info: enemy skill gauge charge speed plus 20%, weak point defense minus 40% for all enemies, and the nullified disabled debuffs: petrify, silence, confuse, stun, sleep, smite, and nullify electrocution debuff, which of course our favorite debuffer of the World Boss Trial recently, Juno, does have, so he won't be of use for us here in this event. So it'll probably be a bit rough compared to the last few World Boss Trials, but of course we do have some units here we'll overview that you will generally want to toss onto your team. Of course, the important staples, as you guys could see my front row, you'll most importantly be using these units across all World Boss Trials. And of course, I'll be sure to have a link in the description box below to a graphic I created to guide you all on most of the staple units per elements of the World Boss Trial event. So of course, for this specific boss, as you guys can see, I am running the Sunbeach Mona, Sweet Citry, Oracle Werewolf, Newbie Mona, Failnaught here, Lewin for the debuffer slots, Mercury, Thisbe, Citry, the wood type supporter, Self-Depreciating Navi, Christmas Letta, Rusalka, Teresa, Letta, Bathory, and Tiamat. So those are my 3 attackers, and they do happen to be fully ignited, which does help a ton. We also do have your Ganesha for the drive skill, of course, a very good supporter unit. And we do have here as well Bathory, Lupin, and Mott, as of course this boss is fairly difficult with the damage over time. Now of course there are other units you could substitute, but here are the general units you would like to run here for the event. And we also do have some honorable mentions, of course. So let's go into the fire attackers and we'll discuss which attackers you should be using for the event. So ideally you would want to run a Lovely Letta, as well as the new fire type attacker unit in Metis. Now Metis of course is prioritized overall, as she is a boost child, and of course she is overall a very strong fire type attacker unit. And if you guys haven't checked out her kit, she is percentage based, and she does have 180% damage here on the slide skill, which is very strong. And the leader buff as well here, attack plus 18% for fire type allies. On world bosses, attack plus 22% 4 fire type allies. So overall, a very strong unit here, and you guys would definitely want to use her if you do manage to pull her from her guaranteed upon summoning banner, which she does currently have active now. Now, of course, after you do have the Metis and of course Letta, if you do happen to have Letta, you will want to prioritize Quartus and Bathory. Overall, a very amazing and very flexible 6-hit slider unit upon being fully ignited, and of course it deals a ton of damage. Now, if you don't happen to have those, we do have some honorable mentions here as well in Slashing Tiamat, a 6-hit unit once more if she is fully ignited. We also do have a 4-star mention here of the, I do believe here, Shining Yuna, as you can see in her default costume. If you guys did manage to pick her up from the previous Lisa's Extra Lessons, I did manage to choose her, but I won't be using her for the event. As for other attackers here, we do have Aleel, which is a good attacker. Also here, the Davi here, which is a decent tapper unit. We also do have some more honorable mentions here if we do scroll down as well. If you guys are lacking a ton in the fire type attacker department, then you could probably use the Archfiend Davi, but overall, past those staple attackers, it does get pretty brim, and you would actually want to prioritize Thriving over the Archfiend Davi, as Thriving is a pretty outclassed fire type attacker here in the World Boss. But as you guys can see, she was made for the World Boss trial event, and we do have here her slide skill with the World Boss only affect these meta fire type attackers for now. So the top priorities in order would of course be Metis, followed by the Sweet Letta, Quartus and Bathory, Slashing Tiamat, Aleel here, the Davi, as well as a honorable mention if you do have her fully ignited from the Lisa's Extra Lessons in the Shining Yuna. Next up here, everyone, for the supporter units. Now, we do have some staple units, of course, that are used across all trials. We do have first up here, of course, most importantly, Vanguard Lupin, which is a very important crit buffer here on Destiny Child. So if you don't happen to have her, you will have to resort to using Pantheon, which is a crit buffer as well, but not as good as Lupin, of course. Next up here, we do have Newbie Mona, which is essential for World Boss Trial as well, so suggested to be ran as well. Next up here, we do have Thisbe, which is a good speed buffer here on the World Boss Trial, alongside other units here, such as Lovey-Dovey Citri, which is a good light type supporter here, ideally for the front row, as you guys could see here based on my composition. Next up here, we do have Heartfelt Citri, the wood type supporter unit here as well. And we do have some more mentions here if we do scroll down in Lady Tiwaz, which could come in handy here, specifically for her tap skill here. We do have skill gauge plus 40.8% for 2 allies' highest attack. Of course, this is at rank 7 stats, but overall a very strong tap skill here if you guys would like to use her on your team. Next up here, we do have a staple for the wood type event, in particularly in Fail Nots, which does come in handy here with her slide skill, the double-edged sword here, a very strong unit here. Fail Nots. Next up here, we do have Fire Ruselica, Tragedy Ruselica, which is very strong here. We do have here her slide skill here, which is strong alongside the tap skill. As you guys could see the skill order here, a slide into 4 taps. So overall, an essential fire type supporter here as well. Next up, we do have Ganesha, which is very necessary for the event, as of course she does have offensive stance here on her drive skill. And we do have some more mentions in the Letta here. Santa Letta, which does have a good slide skill for survivability. As you guys can see, she does grant barrier before HP is affected to 3 allies, priority the lowest HP, and attack plus 45.4% for 3 fire type allies, highest attack for 16 seconds long. So a strong unit here in Letta, and we do have another unit here as well, which is very strong and essential for the event in Teresa. So as you guys could see here, based on her slide and tap skill, overall a strong unit here, granting skill gauge charge speed plus 49% here on the slide skill, as well as weak point skill final blow plus 58.6% to 3 fire type allies, highest attack for 2 turns, and the tap skill here, a 64% chance to grant skill gauge full charge for one fire type ally, excluding self. Now for some other honorable mentions, we do have here the Pantheon, as I did mention earlier. If you guys do happen to not have Lupin available here on your account. Next up here, we would have another unit here. If you guys are lacking survivability in Shining Letta, she is a 4-star unit at base, but can heal your entire team if you guys are lacking in the survivability department. We also do have here another unit that could come in handy in the Pure Smile Neptune here. She does grant the double-edged sword here on the slide skill, so if you guys are lacking a unit such as Failnaught, and of course do lack survivability as well, she does heal here on the slide skill of hers. Next up here, we do have another unit which is pretty good here with the tap skill units. If you guys do happen to have her in Hermes, we do have her ideally wanting to be ignited, but as you guys could see here, based on her slide skill, we do have the damage up for the tap skills of 3 allies, so ideally this unit would want to be ignited, but if you guys do lack the supporter units in particular for the event. Now, overall, those would be my suggestions for the supporter category here for the specific event, and if you guys are lacking any more, of course resort to the World Boss Trial Guide I do have in the description box below as well. Next up here, everyone, we are going to be discussing the defenders that are suggested for the event. Of course, most importantly, we do have the 5-star fire type defender in Dionysidae, which does come in handy here with her slide skill. As you guys could see here, she does grant double-edged sword, attack up and defense down 70% to fire type allies, max 5 for 16 seconds long, so a pretty strong slide skill here for Dionysidae. Now for the last two, we do have the suggestions based on if you guys are suffering in survivability. So Mars here could come in handy if you guys do lack survivability here with the slide skill, which does shield all allies for 14 seconds with a plus 1200 HP barrier. So this is a good unit for survivability, so if you guys do lack it, then definitely toss Mars onto your team. And we do have another defender here which is suggested for the event, in which she can absorb debuffs. If we could find her here, we do have Athena, which is pretty strong here on the tap skill. We do have a 70% chance to grant debuff taunts, receive 1 debuff in place of an ally to self for 20 seconds, and debuff duration minus 20% except for certain effects for 20 seconds long. So overall, that'll pretty much do it for the defenders, and then we'll move on now to the healers. Next up here, everyone, we do have the healers you will ideally want to run here on the events. Of course, you will probably only need 1. We do have here Abyssal Mott, which is ideal for the event, as of course she is just a heal bot here on her slide skill and does heal all allies, so a pretty strong unit here for the World Boss Trial event. Now if you guys don't happen to have Mott for some reason, then we do have Pure Bride Pomona, which does come in handy here with the nullified debuffs here on the slide skill, and of course she does heal a bit to the 2 allies, prioritizing the lowest HP. So overall, a pretty strong healer here in Pomona. Next up here, everyone, will be discussing the drive orders that are suggested, and of course the skill order, as well as the suggestions for the leader skill. Now first up here, let's discuss some drive orders here. We will just run through these quickly. First up here, we do have Teresa in 2 Oracle Werewolf and ending off with a Ganesha drive. So you guys could test this and see how it does work on your composition. Of course, you guys will need to do some testing based on your team comp, etc., uncaps, all of that jazz. You will want to test these drive orders and see which does manage to output the most damage for your roster. Now next up here, we do have Mercury into Oracle Werewolf and ending off with the Ganesha. Another drive order I do have suggested would be Sun Beach Mona into Oracle Werewolf and ending off with Ganesha here. And for the drive skill order, specifically if you guys are lacking survivability, we do have here the Oracle Werewolf into the Citri and ending off with Ganesha. Of course, Citri does manage to shield the front row, which is very important if you guys are lacking survivability a ton here. Another drive order you guys could try would be the Wood type supporter Citri into Oracle Werewolf and ending off with the Ganesha. And one more here I do have in mind would be Thisbe into Oracle Werewolf and ending off with Ganesha as well. So of course you guys will always want to end off in Ganesha as she does have offensive stance. Now I am honestly just sticking with the Teresa into Werewolf and ending off with Ganesha for now, and I'll test a little bit more into the event. Now for the leader buffs everyone, you will ideally want to use the Metis leader buff as she is very strong, but if you guys don't happen to have Metis just yet, you guys could also use the Sweet Letta here, which is very strong. We do have the slide skill final blow plus 15% for fire type allies on world bosses, slide skill final blow plus 20% added, so a strong leader buff here as well for Letta. If you don't happen to have Letta, then you guys could try Ganesha for the leader buff here, which is strong as well. Now for the skill order here, as you guys could see based on my composition, now of course if you guys are using other units, most units will be ran on slide only, but we do have some units with an exception here. We do have some units based on my comp. We do have Newbie Mona with slide into a tap. As for the others, you guys could see slide skill only for most of them. We do have the Wood Citri here with 1 slide and 4 taps, as well as Rusalka 1 slide 4 taps, the Teresa here with 1 slide and 4 taps. As for the attackers here, we do have the Letta with 1 tap into 2 slides, as well as Courtesan Battery 1 tap into 2 slides here as well, and Lupin here 1 slide into 2 taps. So most units will be ran on slide only. If you guys do have any questions based on the units you are using, make sure to leave them in the comment section below, and of course I'll get back to you guys as soon as possible for your skill orders. And of course you guys could always join my Discord server in the description box below as well, and I could help you guys in there with your team comps. Now for the equip recommendations everyone, we do have of course the gear. Ideally you will want to prioritize attack and crit on your attackers, and of course these soul cartas for your units. We do have here specifically the world boss soul cartas here for the attackers. Let me find my units here first, and we do have here this soul carta, the measure of justice, which will be suggested overall for your attacker units here. As you guys could see, the special option when equipped, increase a weak point skill final blow by 27% for world bosses. Now this of course is at full uncapped prism status, but ideally you guys will want to use this carta regardless. Now if you guys don't happen to have this one just yet, we do have another honorable mention here in the Beach Trap and Victim soul carta, which is good for attackers as well. Now for all of your other units, specifically the front row, you will ideally want to apply showtime to the front row units first, and of course all of your best HP and the defense gear to the front row, as of course these units will be attacked most. So apply showtime to these units, and if you guys don't happen to have showtime or lack too many copies, then you guys could use any other HP and defense soul carta for the front row as well. As for your debuffers, you will want to prioritize Troubleshooter Mona, which is a very strong soul carta for them. And if you guys don't happen to have Troubleshooter Mona, then you could always just go with Showtime for them, or any other HP and defense soul carta. Now that'll pretty much do it for this guide here for the World Boss Trials Season 24 event. Of course, make sure to leave me any questions in the comment section below if I did manage to leave anything out of this guide, or if you guys do have any personal suggestions of yours to leave in the comments as well. I'll make sure to pin any comments that do hold a ton of information for the viewers here, and of course make sure to check out in the description box below as well the link to my Discord server, and of course the link to the World Boss Trials staple guide, as I did mention earlier on in this video. But before you go everyone, Make sure to leave a like on this video if you guys did enjoy today's Destiny Child guide, and of course if you guys haven't yet done so already, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you guys are interested in more Destiny Child videos such as this one. But with all of that being said, I'll see you all in the next Destiny Child video. As always, thank you all so much for watching.